everybody, Scully's back. So in today's video, I wanted to do a segment about something that I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but it's actually rather common. It's called maladaptive daydreaming. And while a lot of people daydream, kind of let their mind wander from time to time, maladaptive daydreaming as a topic is not very well understood because, well, as the name suggests, maladaptive daydreaming is kind of more like kind of automatic, and it's kind of, I think a lot of people kind of use it as a coping mechanism more than anything else, and I feel like for in a lot of ways it can actually be rather helpful. But when it's kind of your go-to on a regular basis and you're not getting a lot of work done, or it's really starting to affect your life quite a bit, it's easy to see how something like that starts out rather helpful can actually be problematic in the long run. So maladaptive daydreaming, what is an example of it? Well, an example as to how something like this could be potentially an issue in your day-to-day life is if you're really kind of in situations not only where you need to be more focused, like driving, you don't want to be daydreaming too much, but maladaptive daydreaming can also be consequential because if it's something like, you really need to get some sort of task done, maybe talk to a certain person, and you really kind of keep putting it off, and you really kind of just cope with that stress by just kind of daydreaming rather than actually facing your real life problems, and that can be very negative over time because you're not really facing your actual issues in life. You're kind of just avoiding them and kind of just letting your mind go other places rather than actually facing the issue that's at hand. And that can be something that you do very automatically, and you don't even always realize it's an issue until maybe it's brought to your attention, or again, if it's something like daydreaming while you're driving and then it causes issues in that area, that's maybe when it becomes more apparent that this mechanism can actually be detrimental more than helpful. So if you suspect that you're, daydreaming maladaptively, then how exactly would you go about kind of, eliminating that in terms of like, I'm not saying to stop daydreaming altogether, but how exactly would you come to that conclusion? Well, kind of start to notice some patterns as to when you find yourself daydreaming the most. Like, do you do it more under stress? Do you just do it because you're bored and you just kind of let your mind wander? Because, again, that's pretty normal. But if you really kind of find yourself just kind of doing it in situations where it's not very appropriate, you're kind of using it as like a means of escape rather than facing real life issues, and that's kind of when it becomes more apparent that something is really kind of going on. And with this topic at hand, it's really kind of tricky because there's not really a whole lot that's understood about maladaptive daydreaming. Like, we know it's a thing. We know that some people have it, but like, is it a sign of mental illness? Is it a mental illness in its own, or is it just something that people do in response to stress, trauma, boredom, or just kind of even out of habit if there's somebody who really just daydreams on a regular basis? So in regards to kind of like pointing that out and realizing that it's kind of causing a lot of issues in your life, how exactly would you go about kind of minimizing that a little bit more? So in addition to kind of really paying attention to when you kind of notice yourself daydreaming, kind of try to find ways to, like, I talked about some grounding techniques in one of my other videos with dissociation, and I found that those can also be rather helpful with maladaptive daydreaming, because in some ways you can kind of see maladaptive daydreaming as kind of almost like a form of dissociation. Perhaps not as severe as other forms, but it can kind of, those two can kind of go hand in hand more than people realize as well, which is why if it is a common thing that's going on and is wreaking a lot of havoc in your life, really wanting to talk to a professional about it, like your therapist or your doctor, and really kind of seeing what's causing a lot of that, because there could actually be a lot more going on in this little picture, so to speak, than what you may think or others may think. Like, especially if it's somebody like in school, college, work, somebody may just think you like to daydream a lot, and they may just try to get you to snap out of it, but they may not know what's going on in your day-to-day life that's causing your mind to kind of drift off, and they don't know the amount of stress that you're under. And even if it's the same as theirs, everybody handles stress differently, everybody handles life differently, and people have different ways of coping with it. And that's part of how these things kind of surface over time, is really just kind of noticing certain patterns in your life, certain things that cause it, and just knowing that you're different than everybody else, and how one person handled stress in their life isn't going to be the same as how you handle yours. And that's an important thing to keep in mind with really any kind of therapy, treatment, really kind of getting to the bottom of any issue, because it's easy to be hard on yourself if you like notice your daydreaming is really impacting your life quite a bit, and maybe you're not even quite sure what to do about it and you're just so mad at yourself, and really you just have to kind of give yourself more patience than that, because it's it's an issue that takes like any complicated issue, it doesn't get tackled overnight. You do have to kind of problem solve and kind of really see what's going on in this area of your life, and really see if you can try to pinpoint it and try to make things a little bit easier. And again, I'm not saying that people have to stop daydreaming altogether, because it's rather normal, rather healthy for the most part. And in some ways, it is actually how your brain solves problems, whether you realize it or not, because most people are very imaginative, they're very visual, and so it's very common to, like, when you get ideas going, kind of start brainstorming and kind of have all these things kind of flowing at once. So daydreaming can be a very helpful, very healthy part of your life, but it can also, like anything, it can get out of hand. So it's really just kind of a matter of keeping it in check, not getting rid of it altogether. So if you are somebody who is experiencing this issue, just know that you're not alone in that matter. Doesn't it doesn't make you weird. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you some strange, odd person compared to everybody else. It just actually really just means it's pretty normal like anybody else. I think that it exists on a spectrum like anything. And if people are just kind of stuck in their own head a lot, it can be very overwhelming, because even though your brain is a sense of comfort and does make you feel better in times of stress, which is another reason why people daydream, getting stuck in your own head can be kind of like when you're stuck at home all the time and you get like cabin fever and you just feel like you just gotta get out. You just gotta, you're just stuck in the same four walls and you're getting kind of stir crazy, and you just really gotta break out of that funk after a while, because it really just becomes kind of overwhelming and you just kind of feel like you're just in this constant like room area, and everybody likes to have a safe space, but when you're stuck in the same spot for too long, it's like you got to keep moving, you got to keep your brain going, your brain activity, and you can kind of start to get depressed if you're just kind of the same old thing all the time, same routine. You just got to switch it up sometimes. I mean, part of keeping your brain happy and keeping yourself like active is having a stimulating environment, and things aren't so stimulating after a while if it's just the same old thing every day. And although that's kind of nice at times, you just kind of want to switching things up even a little bit can just really get your brain going, and you just kind of realize that there's more outside of those walls than what you may see because you're not looking outside of those four walls. So just kind of reminding yourself that there's something else outside of those four walls other than what you're used to. I mean, that can be scary at first, but that can also be very exciting, because life just has so many wonderful things, and really wanting to explore all those things rather than getting too overly content with the same thing all the time, which of course that can be difficult for a lot of people. I actually made a video about how change can be scary for people, and I think that's a perfect example. So again, if you're somebody who's experiencing this kind of thing, I hope this kind of sheds some light on it and kind of gives you a little glimmer of hope of knowing that you're not the only one that deals with this kind of thing, and it is very normal. It's just really about kind of having some self-discipline and just managing it, and just realizing that although it is healthy, there can be too much of a good thing, despite what people may think. So just really kind of being on the lookout for that, and being sure that that your life is safe and happy for you, and if that is a sign that something more is going on, hopefully that can be the first step in really acknowledging that and kind of coming to terms with that and kind of starting that process of investigation and seeing what's going on, because in a lot of aspects of life things are complicated and there's more than what meets the eye. So sometimes things can start out subtle, but then they can actually shed more light than what you would expect initially. But until next time, have a great day, everybody.